Well, hello, Covert Witness. I don't know what episode we are. I lose track. Just wanted to give you all an update with my online media content. Tell you what's going on. Have a chat about these things that are flying over my home. They haven't been actually for quite a while, and I'm expecting something, but it still hasn't turned up. But I want to give you some insights, really. I think into what is going on with me. And all that kind of thing. And where do you begin? Because for the past 2 weeks now, I haven't had a clue what to say to you. And that's how it goes. Sometimes you just ain't got a clue what to say. You don't know it all. You don't sometimes know what's happening. But it's nice just to give people insights, I think. And I'd like to thank all my supporters. I get supportive emails. I even get a lot of support in my local pub. People say that, Tony, sometimes we might not believe you, and sometimes we do, and we think your work, or sometimes people say we think your work's brilliant, but you're a guy who's really better for knowing, because they'll say a lot of people think it's all weird, and it isn't, when you look into it, it's not all that weird, and of course it isn't that weird, because you're looking at the cutting edge of consciousness, the cutting edge of spirituality, and many other factors as well. And isn't it metaphorically odd? I thought I'd film behind a brick wall. How metaphoric is that? Because that's what it's about. The silence upon humanity about all this is like a brick wall. And there's a window just behind me which is like a metaphorical gateway, I think, to open what is going on. And isn't that interesting about gateways, I think? Because if you look at a secretive agency in the 1950s called the Collins Elite, you will realise that they were more probably secretive than Majestic 12. The American shadow government is quite aware of the UFO situation. My experience is probably go beyond that. And in a book, which is probably the most underrated book written, a book called Final Events by Nick Redfern. It traces the history of the Collins Elite, formed in the 1950s by elements of the Navy, the Air Force and the FBI. And curiously, it is from my own research, separate from Nick Redfern's. There are a few pointers to indicate that indeed something was going on. Collins Elite decided to find out why UFOs were getting shot out aircraft were getting shot out the sky due to a UFO air war in the 1950s. This is called the UFO air war of 1950. It is documented. You'll see it in all my lectures. Now, not only is it documented, but there were adverts in the New York Times for extra anti-aircraft batteries, because these UFOs, were coming in and they were shooting down aircraft. And so the Americans were launching jets at them, firing salvos of about 12 rockets at a time at them, and hoping for the best. And sure enough, they were shot down in some cases, because they're good, but they're not God. In some cases, I think these UFO occupants are as mortal as we are. So that was an interesting takeaway. But what the Collins Elite discovered, and they were very clever people to do this, is they discovered that there was a possible link between the esoteric and the occult and these UFOs. In fact, they ultimately concluded that there was some sort of demonic interaction occurring, and this is where the dangerous element comes in, because it is a jigsaw. And I think there are three major components to the UFO phenomena. There is, of course, the liaison that goes on with the intergalactic, interstellar people that do exist and are there. There is next what's known as the Antarctica equation, which I will discuss in a separate Covert Witness altogether. Part of the jigsaw puzzle, and this is known but kept quiet, part of the jigsaw puzzle about UFOs is some of them come from Antarctica, because where else did the Nazis go at the end of World War II? Britain was already doing operations in Antarctica with all this, looking into all this, before the Americans were with Operation High Jump, under something called Operation Tabalan. And very interesting. So, is it Tabaland or Tabalan? I think it's Tabaland. Anyway, worth a look. I'll discuss it in a separate Covert Witness blog. And then, of course, we had the equation that I'm only too familiar with, what the non-human entities are called non-human entities. It was something that the Collins Elite was looking at. And what is interesting is in Linda Moulton Howe's book, High Strangeness, Volume 1, she was approached by men of the American Department of Defense, who indicated that they had a particular problem with something called non-human entities, or NHEs. And this particular problem was quite unbelievable, because it appeared that across the threshold of time and space, as we had intrusion going on, and the Americans had clocked this, the Russians had as well. What is little known is that the CIA funded part of the Russian psychic espionage programs. If you look very carefully, you'll find that they gave money to the Russians to fund psychic espionage, but yet they were against each other. But you see there is this common analysis going on. They're looking, they're watching, they're monitoring. So there was this intrusion going on with something called non-human entities, or NHEs. And you see, in terms of the occult, when you see in the pop industry all this symbolism going on, all the one-eyed bullshit and all this absolute rot that goes on with it, these people who are doing this, the pop stars that you see, especially doing this, which is an indication of fashion and all this kind of thing, which is the cult of the all-seeing eye. It actually means we approve of his undertaking upon high. And as I've always said, but whose undertaking are you approving of? You don't know. If you're a celeb or anybody like that who's doing all this stuff with that kind of force, as to whose undertaking are you undertaking? Do you know what it is that you're involved with? I've certainly seen it, and the Americans and the Russians saw it in a military kind of way as to what it was. And it is non-human. In other words, and I've said it in a TV programme, I've said it in all kinds of my research, the show is ruled by something not human. And they termed it non-human entities, or NHE. And therefore the Collins elite were looking at this American agency called the Collins elite, were looking as to how this had occurred. And they managed to pin it down to the mystical and occult workings and ritual. They managed to understand that ritual will open gateways into certain situations and cause all kinds of esoteric mayhem in terms of the human psyche, in terms of the human collective subconscious. So it's simply more than just UFOs in the sky. There's another component to it, and it forms three pieces of a jigsaw, really, in a way. So therefore, in this research about the Collins elite, there was a code name used in one of the documents referring to the Collins elite with the head guy. The head guy is Majestic 12 in Majority 12. Majestic 12, it's MJ12 is meant to be the top man. Oh, MJ1 is meant to be the top man. In the Collins elite, they kept referring to a man called Loftus Burt. Loftus Burt thinks this, Loftus Burt thinks that, Loftus Burt, and so on and so forth. It's a coded reference to somebody. Whoever that Loftus Burt is, I'd like to meet them, because I'm sure we've certainly got a lot to discuss. And so I decided that I was going to change my website to Loftus Gate, which is an understanding of a further understanding of the situation that our governments were involved with in watching the UFO phenomenon. So I'm really undecided. I'm just musing really to you. I'm really undecided as whether to have it as Ops UFO or Loftus Gate, which is an extension of the Loftus boat and all that was going on there with the non-human entities. And what is interesting about this is, as reported as well by Whitley Strieber, it all points to this, that these entities, they will not allow you to lose and they will not allow you to win. They just drag it on and on and on. And it's quite nasty. I know around about 3 to 4 in the morning I was awoken from something very unpleasant that had been a very ancient force that was around humanity for a very long time, and that's it, that's what it was. I've always said, however, that it does need to be respected. If it is not respected, I don't think I'd be alive, frankly. If the force is not respected, you have to be very careful with it. You've got to respect fire, and in my situation, it's just best left to be observed, as far as I'm concerned, because if I don't think I'd be alive. That's how Covert Witness, this is how the covert stuff really works, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you've got to be cynical, and I know you know that this is an exclusive blog, not for the faint-hearted, and so we'll just move on to my friends, the Scandinavian-looking people who keep flying in over the house and flying out again. I'm still expecting them. And I go and do ham radio on the riverbank. I'll put up something on my YouTube channel about that. I'm a keen ham radio operator. Art Bell, George Nuri, a few other big names in our research subject are radio hams. And I certainly am. I'm fascinated with signals. Absolutely fascinated with signals. And in my case, that includes signals in time and space with non-human intelligences. And what is very interesting to know is the interaction still continues, and the oppression, the brick wall oppression, still continues. This is due to some contactees who have the CE5 encounter are exposed to not only having an encounter, but are exposed to an environment that is beyond the spiritual realm, and exposure to time that is more forward in a point in history than where we are at the moment. Therefore, if you have interaction with dimensional aliens, you're kind of like shoved forward in time and then replaced back again in current time, and that leaves a signal. It leaves a kind of a signal that causes what I term the Yasmat paradox. The Yasmat being you become the causal nature of the situation through no fault of your own. And this has been the ongoing ethical quarrel between these things that fly over the house and these people in another dimension. Hard to handle, tough, soak it up, I've got nothing to lose. If you think I'm a lunatic, move on, this isn't for you. This is hardcore, covert ops UFO stuff that I'm talking about. And I'm proud to talk about it as well. So, it seems to me that that seems to be where the argument comes from. Something has happened to me that I'm not sure of. It seems to me that these symptoms have happened where I've been exposed to something that is dimensional and then put back into our current time and space. And as the people have repeatedly said that keep coming over the house, the ethics of that is questionable. They're not happy with it. And so I describe these dimensional ETs as a bit of a rum lot, really. And it leaves you with 1,001 other things to deal with on this situation, and you're hammered, you get hammered, because of what you know, because for some reason this brick wall of oppression behind us seems to stay in place, no matter where we are in history, and that's a damn shame. While we're slaughtering each other with world wars. 2 world wars, possibly a third, is not a coincidence. It's just not that random, really. I don't think. I think there's a modus operandi behind it that is unknown. Even though we see in the headlines about, for example, currently, China, for example, currently, at the moment, quarrelling about its defence conditions in the South China Sea, defending its mineral wealth, all this kind of thing. You will know no technology has been introduced to humanity to stop that, because that's not the idea. The idea is to keep the oppression flowing. The idea is to keep the conflict going. The idea appears to be to oppress, oppress, oppress. And that's what it's about. It seems to be about an oppressive silence. So what is comical is you get me on a housing estate in the middle of Britain, having these bloody things, respectfully, I must say, fly over. They seem to be quite respectful when they're flying over. And they are not from round here, as I've often said. They're blonde, they're very tall-looking, blue-eyed. They're just not from round here. And I appear to have struck up a liaison with one of them. He's in his 30s. He's been over the house once. Sounds daft, doesn't it? Even I have to go, hey, are you... but it's true. We've got nothing to lose. Why? I've just got nothing to lose in saying all this, and people will take it or leave it. And I hope you just find it fascinating. I've not written a multi-million-pound selling book. I don't have my multi-million-pound TV documentary. I'm just sat in a garden on an iPad, just chatting about my liaison with these things. And so he's in his 30s. He's been over the house once before in an extraordinary way, and the vision of this was done by Lloyd Canning. And he's spoken to me quite a few times, really. Very gently spoken to me, very subtle. So it's like, from what I can gain from them, they are seafarers. They were developed from a seafaring nation, wherever that is. They're from the Andromeda galaxy. Their technology is very advanced. They are a spiritual people, and they can be quite tribal when they want to be. They can be quite the tribal collective when they want to be. And I think you will find that they have cities and vehicles, just like we do, but they have a military element, they have a military component, a governance. They have all the systems that we seem to have in place, but their technology is just way out there. Their triangles you'll probably see flying around. But the question is, what are they up to? I just don't know. But yesterday something happened when I was out with the ham radio kit, where they spoke to me again. I know when they're speaking to me because he has a distinctive voice, fluent in English but distinctive voice. Very young guy, as I say, about 30s, something like that. And he calls me his friend Tony. So perhaps and it's odd really, because a few years back I'd been walking down the canal round about 9 o'clock at night. Down the canal bank, and I heard a coughing sound that I couldn't see, and some movement, and I always wondered if it was them. And it's happened on numerous occasions, little things like that, where there's somebody there just watching. I know when I fell over on my bank and fell down a dike, down a ditch, there was a UFO suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And so there was numerous warnings from them, these Scandinavian-looking people in the UFOs. Numerous warnings about Ukraine, startling visions of London, of all places, and Canary Wharf. I mean startling. Like some out of the the film, you know, Queen and Radio Gaga, the 1900s film. Visions of that, but a lot more vivid and a lot more kind of with UFOs thrown in. Spectacular, really, so spectacular that I can't even get it into the artistic kind of picture that I want. Lloyd Canning's going to help with that, I think. So they were telling me about their governance. They have a kind of like a council of governance that they're elders, and they are very wise and learned individuals. You know, and so this liaison goes on, and where it will go, it's only very light, isn't it? It's nothing spectacular, really, is it? I mean, I have to say, but so they've said they'll just drip the information to me, they'll keep it coming. I've no doubt that I'll have a liaison with them. Guy in Sweden is already having a liaison with them. They're a rum lot. But it'll be interesting. And, you know, and if it, you know, give it a whirl. Let's give it a whirl, I'm thinking. Let's just see where this liaison leads. Because they're fascinating. And yesterday, that was it, I've been rambling, sorry. Yesterday I was on the riverbank, and I heard him again say, "We in the UFOs are here, Tony." But they kind of like you couldn't see them, but they were there. And that's very interesting as well. So the liaison actually goes on, it continues, and we'll see what happens with it. Today has been a continual day of trying to make a difference with things. I'm trying to work on the website, just trying to decide on the title, and we're trying to decide as well. There's been some guidance above regarding the writing of my book. I've got a book that I need to write, and they've said to me these things that are coming in over the house, that it needs to be your journals that you've written that you need to talk about, rather than an autobiography, which would probably come next. So I've no idea really where it's all leading, but the liaison is continuing, and so appears is the grief and oppression because of it all. But you know, to those who targeted me, and you know who you are, I'm very glad to say that I've gone beyond you and continue to do so, and I hope you're foaming at the mouth, because I don't think you're nice people, and I think that you give my country and the people who work in the realms of national security and the protection of our country a very bad name indeed, and you know who you are. And I know that it's gone on, and you know that it's gone on. And I am Covert Witness, and I don't say that for nothing. That title does not come lightly when you say it, Covert Witness, because I have witnessed something covertly under the radar that isn't correct, that isn't right, but is quite active. And I could get more controversial about it, but I won't. I'm trying to live a normal life, which is difficult. And I've got other things to do. It would be nice to get a steady girlfriend on the go. I've not had a girlfriend for a while, and that would just be nice. You know, but this is how it affects you. It traumatises. It creates havoc for you. So there you go. So that's it. I'm glad to have shared that with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll give you some more information. My mind's thinking, did I do that correctly? Was it disjointed in any way? No, I'm just giving you something to go on. So go and look it up on the internet. Rewind the YouTube clip that I've just done here, and go and have a look at the Collins Elite. Go and have a look at Operation Tamerlan. Have a look at Linda Howe's research and Nick Redfern's book Final Events. Probably one of the most underrated books in the subject of UFOs ever written, because it opens a doorway. It really does. Okay, this is Covert Witness. Over and out.